Let's talk about it.
Hello and welcome back to Thicc Radio, the podcast where we talk about gaming and everything in its orbit. I'm James.
And I'm Tim, so let's get into it. Today we're joined by a special guest. You know them, you love them. We have another James in the house.
Yes! Hello, other James. How are you today, other James?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. I'm doing very good. Thank you for having me here.
Oh, thank you for being here. You know, you're someone who we've had the pleasure of talking in the past, and you know, I just think you're such a hoot. You're so funny. I was very keen to have you on.
Thank you.
So, Tim, what are we talking about today?
Today we're talking about what it's like to actually achieve one of your goals and reach a goal weight. We are talking about what it's like to live in a 500-pound body.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. And I mean, look, before we kick things off, to anyone listening who maybe is outside of the community or, you know, is maybe a bit new to things, over the years, gaming likes to scale up its expectations. So it's sort of like back in the day, 300 was a pretty good goal, and now 400 is the new 300. So 500 is the new 400, and it's kind of now the super chub baseline goal, it seems. Below 500, you're still kind of normal gainer territory, above which apparently you disappear into the echelons of the gods above. Generally seems to be the vibe. So,
Yeah.
other James, what?
Hello.
How did you kick things off? What's that experience like?
Yeah, I completely agree with the whole things do increase over time, sort of exponentially when it comes to weight goals. Because yeah, I've been there. A lot of gainers have. You're always like 300's the new 200, 400's the new 300, and so on. And you just sort of think it's hard to explain. I think something. Okay, right. If I wind back a bit, I never in a million years thought I'd hit 500 pounds. I never thought that was something that would ever happen. I think probably when I started, thought 350 would be some insane amount. That would be the max I'd ever see. That would be some ludicrous amount to get to. And you get there, and it's not actually anything to write home about. It's like you think, I'm sure I can go bigger than that. And then you think 400 is going to be it, and it's really not. And just it goes on and on and on. The whole 500 thing actually was almost an accident, which is kind of a weird thing for a gamer to say. But when I started aiming for the 500s, I was actually losing weight. We were looking at about, just about when lockdown hit, so March 2020. And for various reasons, one way or the other, I was trying to lose a little bit of weight, regain a bit of health. And I was doing quite well with that. And then lockdown hit and we had to stay indoors. And I took it as a green light just to kind of be like, well, let's just be gluttonous. Let's just see what happens. And I managed to go from 430 to 510, I think it was, in the space of 4 months, which was kind of nuts. So, but it was only because that opportunity presented itself, and it was like, I cannot leave the house. I have nowhere else to be. And all the money I'm saving on fuel, I'm spending on junk food. And it was like literally like fast food 6 times a week. So I genuinely didn't expect to ever hit 500. And I think just as the momentum was going, I was thinking, this is fun. Hell, I could actually do this. This is actually achievable now. I could actually hit 500. And then I did it. And it was just, it's crazy. It's incredible. It's, very unexpected.
Well, you made it happen. You're living the gainer dream, and of course, as is to be expected, there's zero repercussions. There's no regrets, and in fact, you're looking at 1,000 pounds now and thinking, "Oh, that's far too small. This is nothing."
Yeah.
Okay, and I will say this because I have been told apparently in my mind, obvious sarcasm apparently doesn't read as sarcasm to people. What is your current weight and what are you currently working towards if you're working towards a goal of any kind?
Okay, so I'm currently 475. So my highest was 515. And my current goals are, unfortunately, to some people who are listening, I am losing weight. And that's something I'm trying to make long-term sustainable now. The hard truth of it is the fact that myself and my husband are hoping to have children at some point. So that is something that I've always wanted, that we both have always wanted. So we're both in the process of trying to get into better shape. And in my case, in particular, that does mean losing some of the weight. Probably aiming for under 400, not by much, but definitely enough to get back to where I was when I felt a lot fitter.
Is your husband an encourager, or is he involved in the community in any way, or is he just a civilian?
So he is, I suppose he'd use the same label as me in the sense as gainer. I mean, he has been a gainer since we met, and he's put on a lot of weight as well, but he's usually been around 100 pounds lighter than me in whether we've gained or lost. He's always been that about the 100-pound margin lower than me. So he's still about that 100-pound lower than me now, I think. So like in the 370s. So, but yeah, he's also trying to lose a bit of weight and get a bit fitter as well. So we're both working towards a common goal, really.
Which is just as valid. I mean, we need to put that out there. We've said it before, but we have to say it again, that if just because you want to lose some weight, it does not reverse being a gainer. It doesn't change your validity in the community. Like, people are allowed to do whatever they want with their bodies. So if that means that they want to scale it back a bit, that is totally valid.
Absolutely.
It also doesn't matter the reason why. You know, you stipulated the specific reasons are health in conjunction with raising children. That's a very valid reason.
Yeah.
Just wanting to lose weight because you no longer feel as sexy at 500 pounds as a gainer, and therefore you want to lose a little bit of weight, is also extremely fucking valid. Like,
yeah.
We do need to have more of this as a community, and understanding that, and I've said this before, my personal definition for gaining is less about gaining weight and more about gaining perspective, gaining proximity to the body that you want. We should always be supportive of each other, working towards it. So it's kind of that on that. Don't be giving people grief for weight loss, plain and simple. And kind of on that point, have you had many people thus far come up to you and give you issue for weight loss?
From within the gaining community, no, not really. I think there's been a couple of people who are, should we say, like the one-handed typers who have, you know, one-track minds. They're as far as you're concerned, as far as they're concerned, you're just, you know, piece of meat and all that. They're the only ones who have been a bit like, oh, just get fat, just keep getting fatter, and it's just like, no, thanks. You know, but everybody else has been super supportive. When you tell them the reason why, especially, most of them kind of just melt and go, oh, that's incredibly sweet, I totally understand that. So yeah, everyone's been really amazing about it. So
for you said it was a bit of an accident getting to that size. What did you weigh when you started gaining?
So I suppose when I started gaining, it depends when you count started, really. If you don't count the teenage years, because it's like you're growing anyway during that phase, so it's very hard to sort of measure whether or not you started gaining at a weight then, because you're naturally getting taller and bigger, so your weight's going up anyway. I would probably say age 20, I was 210 pounds, give or take.
Okay.
So yeah, so it's taken, what was it, like 15 years to get there, but yeah, it went from 210 to 515. So
I'm also a person who gains weight very slowly, so I get it. Like, you know, I officially started about, it's almost 4 years ago at this point, and I'm only up to 235.
Fair
I
enough.
started at 180, so
That's still pretty good. I mean, the thing is with me, I think if I hadn't had multiple periods in my life where I wasn't sure, I mean, I'm quite an anxious person, so my gaining has kind of been up and down and up and down. It generally overall up, but there have been periods where I've stopped or lost a bit of weight multiple times. If I hadn't done any of that, I think I would have got there a lot quicker.
I mean, that's fair. I've been gaining for about 7-8 years now, and I've gone up from 100 to about 210.
Wow.
You know, everyone's journey is different, and I feel like this is almost the point, right? Because I think sometimes people look at fantastical numbers, I like to call them 500 point,
Yeah.
where, you know, it almost seems a bit ridiculous to think they're half a ton at that point, but it's achievable.
Well, quarter ton.
Is it quarter ton?
yeah,
500 pounds is quarter ton.
Yeah, a ton
Isn't
is
it
2,000.
Yeah, 2,000 pounds is a ton.
I think yours is a very important story to tell, because I think sometimes people do look at the more fantastical sizes and think, oh, that's unachievable, I could never do that. But in fact, it is achievable. It just takes time. And I would imagine, maybe commenting on your journey here for a second, you probably found when you first started, you maybe found it a little bit more difficult to put on weight because you were having to teach your body how to be lazier and how to process food differently, to the point where when you were in lockdown, it makes perfect sense that you were able to go from 430 to 510 in the matter of 4 months, because after however many years of gaining practice, your body was like, okay, I get it now. I know what I'm doing here. Would you say that that's a fair assessment?
I think normally, yes, but I think for me, there's probably a few clauses in that. So when I say I went from 430 to 515, I did do that over 4 months, yes. However, I had been as high as 490 previously. So there was exactly. And the same goes with the 210. The 210 was after I had basically, I think when I was about, I'm trying to think now, I was 19 or 20. No, I was 20, sorry. And I basically got sick and I lost, I hit 300 pounds and then lost down to 210 in the course of about 9 months.
Wow.
So the weight just fell off. But once I was able to again, I started gaining again. And over the course of maybe the next year and a half or so, I think I got up to about 280 and carried on from there. So it wasn't like a huge rapid regain, but the regain was easier because the gain had already happened before. Wow. So I would probably say anything between then 300 and 490, that was having to be pushed because I'd already hit 300. To be fair, even hitting 300 the first time around, that did involve pushing. So yeah, there was still pushing involved, but you do still have to force your body. I will say, actually, to be fair, getting to 500 this time around felt easier. I don't know if it's just because I had a run up, but when I was 490 before that, there's all these numbers, sorry, they're all over the place. When I was 490 the first time around, I think the reason I started losing the weight again from that point was because I hit 490 and I hit a wall. And I just, no matter what I did, I could not get to 500. And it becomes disheartening. You lose that enthusiasm and that drive to do it because you just feel like, well, this is it's just not fun anymore. Why am I doing this? You know?
Yeah, it kind of feels like it turns into a grind. You know? And
absolutely.
I think another thing that people don't really mention that often is like when you reach those larger numbers, like 400 plus, the amount of calories it takes to maintain that. It's a lot. I mean, you have to consistently eat the way you've been eating to even maintain. And then if you want to get even bigger, you then have to push further.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like when we see these images on Grommr and we see how people just sort of are ballooning, we don't think about, okay, that is a lot of maintenance. You know, it is the body's natural inclination to not be that big. So like it's you know, it's a lot of work.
I think there's actually a statement there that about diet culture that we need to flick to for a second, you know, because I've been listening to a podcast. I've been listening to a podcast called Maintenance Phase, which is hosted by Your Fat Friend on Instagram and I can never remember his name. If either of you happen to listen to this, apologies for not remembering his name. But it's been interesting listening to them do various episodes speaking on different diets and how there's something very obvious that everyone seems to miss, and even I missed, which is that, of course, a diet only works for as long as you do it. That's why it's a diet. Your body is at the weight that it's at because you've conditioned it long enough to achieve it at that point where it can be at that point. When we gain, we're on a weight gain diet. We are technically dieting as gainers. It's just a weight gain. It's the ironic seafood diet. I see food, I eat it. It's that. And we seem to think to ourselves, oh, if I just do this for 6 weeks, I'll put on 10 pounds and it'll stay. But it's not going to stay. If you stop doing that, you are going to lose those 10 pounds. You have to do it consistently for long enough to put your body in a position where it goes, well, I guess this is the new normal. And the best way to do that is actually to do it incrementally over time, because then your body can adjust. This is one of the major reasons, I think, why when people gain weight rapidly or lose weight rapidly, as we see, their bodies fall apart. Because their bodies are like, what the hell is going on here? This is a lot of transition, and we're not doing well. So that's an important tidbit, I think, for anyone listening, no matter which direction you try to go in. Consistency is key. And finding the ways to make that a regular part of your life is only going to make shit easier. So that's that. But Other James, I want to circle in for a moment. You know, the lived experience of being that size, and maybe you're only 475 now, thin waif of a creature that you are now.
Wasted away to practically nothing.
Yeah.
Eat a stick of butter, you skinny bitch. But even commentary like that, like how are you treated at that sort of a size? What's that experience like?
So in the gaming community at that size, you do draw a lot more attention. You do find yourself becoming not necessarily the center of attention, but you find if you post something, suddenly there's a lot more people paying interest. Because at the end of that a lot of the gaming sites and, you know, Grommr and Twitter and all the other places where people look at gamer stuff, that's kind of what they're there for. It's almost like bigger is better. You know, it's people will look at it and go, wow, that guy is bigger than that other guy I was just looking at. Wow, I'll give that a like or a comment. And just, yeah, you somehow end up this beacon of, I don't know, everyone sort of ends up coming and messaging you and leaving comments and God knows what. So it's completely unexpected, and you don't ask for it. But that's kind of what happens in the gaming community. But at the same time, there's also this heavy expectation, pardon the pun. There is an expectation there that you're that big, so you're going to show it off, and you're going to want to talk about it to everybody all the time, and you're going to keep getting bigger, and you got to get bigger faster, and there's an immense pressure gets added the bigger you get. So it's a weird one. Outside the gaming community, it's difficult because it's very circumstantial. So, like, my friends and family are brilliant about. I mean, I've always been fat. They don't. That's not really a shock to them to suddenly be fat, you know. My work has been brilliant because they've had to buy oversized office chairs for me to. I work from home, but they've had to buy extra heavy duty chairs and stuff like that, and they don't even bat an eyelid. They're like, well, we need you to be comfortable, we need you to be working, we'll just buy it, whatever. You know, they're not fussed. Family occasionally show concern and stuff, but I'm just quite good at brushing it off and telling them to shut up. So you know, I think the problem is that the issues that I have outside the gaming community is more issues that I have on my own personal level, like going out and doing things or looking after yourself and stuff. That's more where the issues come in than it is with other people, I would say.
Yeah, that's understandable. And, you know, to circle to the work chair thing for a moment, I'm curious because even I don't know this. Is it a legal requirement for a workplace in the UK to provide you with, I suppose they would term it maybe as disability appropriate furniture for a person of size. Is that appropriate or not a requirement?
I don't know if it's a legal requirement necessarily. I think it's kind of an expectation that they'll provide you with the tools to do your job. If it wasn't an office-based job, if I wasn't working from home, if I was like in retail or something, and I was expected to be able to, walk around and do things, if I suddenly said to them, well, I can't walk this far and do these things, I imagine that they would accommodate. But, and this is probably a whole separate topic in its own right, but obesity is still one of those things that you can discriminate against. So you can't discriminate against, obviously, gender, race, sexual orientation, anything else like that. The last stigma that you can still discriminate against is weight. And there's legally not a lot you can do about that. So I've never had to encounter that. I think I had one boss once who was a arse anyway, but he brought up at one point, oh, you've gained a lot of weight recently. And I just brushed it off as, yeah, that happens, is what I said to him. So in the back of my head thinking, well, yeah, I've done it on purpose, mate. So yeah. But I think, I've not really had anybody else work-wise. Yeah, there's not really been an issue. They've just been nice enough to just sort of do it, really.
Right. I mean, as a personal query then, to people listening who maybe, whether they're 500 pounds or not, if they have approached or are approaching a size where maybe an ergonomic office chair wouldn't be a bad shout and bits and pieces like that, would you encourage someone to speak to their boss and say, hey, listen, I've been feeling a bit run down recently because unfortunately the facilities here aren't sufficient for me. What can we do to cater to that?
I mean, yeah, I would, to be honest, I would always encourage talking to your boss about issues like that, whether weight issues or not, whether it's about being fat or it's anything else. Talk to your boss, talk to somebody, because if they're any kind of decent employer, they'll listen. That's the theory. If they're not, maybe consider changing jobs. But I think when it comes to stuff like chairs and facilities and the like, there's one or two avenues you could do it in my mind. One is you could just flat out approach them and just say, I feel like I need something better suited to the job because of my size. The other is, unfortunately, wait until it happens. So I am on my second chair since working from home, because the first one, to be fair, you can kind of blame the manufacturer for this, but the first one said it was rated for 500 pounds or 30 stone, and they are not the same thing. They are not the same weight. 30 stone is like...
So give me a run through. Did it sort of like implode? Did it collapse all at once? Did it go like piece by piece?
Well, this is the misconception with chairs actually as well. People assume that it's going to break or snap or something. 9 times out of 10, all that happens is the gas strut goes. So I found that I would sit in it and then slowly the gas would leak out of it. And I'd find myself just sitting really low down. The chair still works as a chair. My husband actually has it in his office now, in the other room. But it's literally just a case of the gas strut is not powerful, cannot support that weight rating. So the weight rating they apply to most chairs is just the gas strut.
Gotcha.
To be fair to the chair and to my employer, when we got that chair, that was when I got the job, and they asked, what weight are you? I hate to be blunt, but what weight are you so we can get a chair that's adequate? And at the time, I think I was within the threshold of that chair. And then lockdown happened and I got really fat. So I punished that poor chair basically.
Because it is a very common fantasy among anyone who's into the scene that someone gets so fat the chair just sort of splinters into pieces beneath them as soon as they sit down. And now you clarify, no, that's not really how that works.
No, the thing is, it used to happen to me actually with office chairs, but that only ever happened when I was a lot lighter. We're talking like sub 250s. I would have office chairs break quite often, but that's because I think they could have been because they were cheap. I don't know, but they were quite often that I would lean back in them quite a lot, and it would put a lot of stress on me because it was one of those ones where the leather one where the back is held onto the chair, it's held onto the base by the arms, and I'd lean back on it quite a lot, and it would put a lot of stress on the arms and break the arms, and you just go flying over the back. So, but
I mean,
yeah.
I mean, you can't really see the branding of it, but I ended up buying one of those ergonomic video gaming chairs, which is designed for of 350 pounds. For planning, trying to think ahead. But even in this chair, even as it is now, I find it entertaining just how much I, at just shy of being over 200 pounds, sit in this chair often enough that I've already got a butt groove in the lining of the chair. And there's that thought in my head where I'm like, God, if I can do that at this size, having to sit in this chair every goddamn day, what about me at 350 sitting in this chair every day? Like, how long before, the gas pump in this chair becomes a very ergonomically designed anal rod that I get to reach in the morning, So...
What a rude awakening.
Yeah.
When did you know that you were fucking fat? When I got fisted by the office chair. Oh my God. But these are things that need to be spoken about because I'm going to ask you this. How many people have you had a conversation with, whether it was above 500 or not, but you're quite large, right? How many people have you spoken with or had a conversation with where the summation of it was, oh, you really want this because you're horny as hell, but you have not got a goddamn clue about the reality of this?
So what, within the gaming community, do you mean, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
The only time
no, Gladys down at Morrison's. She's yeah, she's just really keen to. she wants
Janet down at Odd
next week.
I don't know. I'm trying to think. Sorry, forgive me. I'm trying to think exactly what you mean. So just like.
So like operating online, you're on Grommr, you're having a good time, and then someone shoots you a message and goes, "Oh, you're quite big," blah 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 blah, and maybe the conversation theme suggests, "Oh, you're a young fella, or you're a bit smaller than me, but you say you want to get to 500, you want to talk to me about my experience." That's cool. How many of those are legitimate, and how many of those are just a couple of wankers, literally wanking?
Well, yeah. In my opinion, from what I've seen over the years, I would probably say 8 out of 10 of those people are going to be not going to gain more than like 50 pounds. But I mean, that's just me. That's just me being cynical. That's I've seen it so much that there's been so few people who have stuck around, stuck it out, and really actually gone for their guns when they've said, "I want to be massive." There's so many of them who are. You see them, they talk the talk, they're determined, they're absolutely determined, they really make a big deal about I am absolutely committed to this, I am not going to back down, I am totally going to be the next 600-700 pound man, and they get to somewhere in their 300s and go, "Oh, my doctor says I have very slightly high blood pressure, that's it, I'm going to be a twink." And you're just like, for God's sake.
Well,
off the top of my head, I can only think of 2 gainers that I know of that are gung-ho going to the point of like there's no upper weight limit for them.
And one of them we just had on this podcast. He was the person they were the person we interviewed before you.
Okay. Who was that then?
They go by Casey the Tank 15 on Instagram, and they are a death fetus. That was quite an episode, I think, quite enlightening.
And he's adamant he's going for absolute.
Yeah.
Okay.
And don't get me wrong, I've seen some of the photos of them when they were a lot thinner, and they've made progress, and they have been very, very open about their intentions with inflation and with immobility and death fetism and everything else, and having a true tete-a-tete with them about like what goes into that was actually really interesting. So to anyone listening, please go and check out Gaining to the Extreme is going to be the name of the episode. So check it out, have a listen, let us know what you think. What are some surprising changes that people may not know about being at such a size?
Oh, so the biggest issues I would probably say are going to be hygiene and fitness related. Um, Fitness related, if you're not careful, that shit can creep up on you. I remember last summer, which would have been when I was pretty much at my highest weight, and it was very soon after I'd done that 4-month rapid gain. Because I'd gained so quick, my fitness hadn't had a chance to catch up. And I remember being in a shop, quite a large store we have in the UK called The Range.
Oh yeah.
And I decided to walk all the way to the back of the store where the garden centre was in the height of summer because I'm an idiot, and then buy one small fern and then walk back to the tills at the front. And oh my God, it nearly killed me.
Oh, really?
I had to. So I was dragging along this stupid little, like, they do these baskets, but they're like with like a, the extendable handles you have on suitcases. Mm-hmm. So it's like one of those with a basket with a couple of wheels on it. And I was pulling it along behind me. So I was pulling it along behind me at a weird angle. So I had to get that all the way down to one end. I think I stopped halfway and had to lean on something for a few minutes just because I physically couldn't stand anymore. Grabbed this stupid fern that died in the end, by the way. And I think there was some garden furniture, I think about halfway back to the tills, and I just had to go sit on it and just I think I abandoned the cart where it was and just had to sit for the next 5 minutes, gasping for breath, sweat dripping off me, bright red, because I was just like, this is incredibly embarrassing, incredibly awkward. I feel vulnerable. I feel scared because I was just thinking, what do I do? I can't walk. And eventually got the energy back enough to get up to the tills, by which point I arrived at the tills literally gasping. I must have looked like an absolute train wreck. Paid for what I'd got. And then the short walk from the tills to my car, which was parked as close as possible to the front entrance, I remember walking across the road to the car, to where the car was, and I thought to myself, I think any second now, my back is about to give in, and I'm just going to collapse here on the street, because of how bad it was. So, and that's because that's the first time I'd been out in probably several months to do any kind of, shopping. Mm-hmm. So sorry if it's a bit dramatic, but it's just that's how much it can creep up on you when you're really not paying attention to your fitness. You just think, I'll just stay in, I'll get fat. This circumstance has presented itself where I can just stay indoors and I don't have to go anywhere. I can just be fat. But then when you decide, I do want to pop out, something you take for granted, that really creeps up on you. Mm. So that's
something that needs to be said. People need to hear this if they plan to go to the larger end of the scale. It's the reality.
Yeah. And I mean, it doesn't affect everybody like that, but it really does. It depends on the person and their circumstances. My circumstances were literally that I am just quite unfit. I don't do very much exercise. And I then spent 4 or 5 months just indoors, not going out anywhere. So my fitness got even worse. I got even heavier. That circumstance was a bad one. Whereas some people do walk regularly, they do maintain their fitness, and they don't have those problems. So, yeah.
I mean, as we keep saying, these are the experiences we need to talk about on this type of episode because people need to hear it. If you're going to pursue this is the lived reality. Even if it doesn't affect everyone, this could affect you. So ask yourself that question. Are you prepared for that? Are you walking every day? Are you doing the things necessary to maintain your fitness so that when you are in a 500-pound body, you don't get caught unawares? So that's the call out for listeners today. You got to ask yourself the important questions. And, speaking of your general fitness, how often do you see your doctor, and do they know that you're intentionally, well, as we now know, you're not gaining weight at the moment, but as you've seen your doctor over the years, are they aware of your gainer proclivities?
I've never directly told any medical professionals that I'm trying to get fatter, but I have made it a little bit stubbornly clear to a few of them that I am happy with my weight and I have no intention of losing any weight. Hasn't always gone down well. But especially when I had one, I think maybe sort of 12 months ago, where I was very adamant with a nurse, the diabetic nurse I was seeing, and she said, well, you should probably lose some weight. And I quite defiantly was saying, well, no, I'm very happy with how I am. I'm very body positive and I have no intention of losing any weight. And she said, but you've got to, James, think about your heart. And I'm thinking, but you just told me my blood pressure was really good and you're telling me to think about my heart. It's like, make your mind up. She's just, 1 minute she's giving me the facts, the next minute she's assuming that my heart's going to give out. And it's like, well, you just told me my blood pressure's fine. So where's the problem here? So I've not really had any issues besides that with doctors.
Can I ask, was she also fat?
She's a little bit, yeah.
See, sorry. And it's funny because as a working nurse, it's really hilarious to see compatriots of mine giving out advice like that when they're also fat. So it's like, that's why I don't even bother.
I mean, she's not obviously fat on the same level as to what I was, so maybe she just felt it was okay just to be like, well, he's really fat. But I mean, for the most part, she's been okay, but she's just a bit. I think it was possibly a lapse in her judgment, but it's just very much that whole fat stigma thing where it's like, oh, you're fat, you got to lose weight. Think about your heart. It's like, but you've literally just said my blood pressure's fine. So
you told us a little bit about the worst part about being your current size. I want you to tell us what is the best thing and what has been the most surprising thing. Not necessarily good or bad, just surprising.
I mean, so the best thing is obviously more personal to me because it varies from gainer to gainer, really. It's what you get out of it. For me, it probably sounds like a bit of a stereotypical answer, really, but it's kind of the sheer size and heft, the feel of it. It's little things like when I got to 500, I'd be laying on my back in bed and suddenly realize, like, damn, my love handles are now to the point where, like, you can heft them just laying on my back, and it's like that's not something that I had before. Little things like that. The feeling of your gut sticking out a lot further when you're walking around. Just all these additional things. It's I suppose it's the same with any part in your gaining journey, really. It's just the fact that it's more and you feel it. You really, but I suppose when you get to 500, you really feel it. I can only imagine in my wildest dreams what 600 and 700 must be like and beyond that, because it's got to be that, but amplified by some huge magnitude. So I think that's probably the best bit for me. I think the most surprising thing, apart from the unexpected fitness and the hygiene issues, which we didn't cover earlier, but I don't want to gross everyone out. So
no, I think that can be important to mention too, because I've said many times, everybody knows hygiene is my Achilles heel when it comes to some of these hookups. So like, if the hygiene is not good, there might not be anything happening.
We'll hang about. Why don't we pause then and ask frankly and honestly, do you feel comfortable having that conversation here on the podcast?
I think so. I think I'm going to need to censor myself though, because I tend to run away with things.
I mean, look, I think, do you know what? And here's a point I'll make to anyone listening. The previous episode is a death feedism episode, and there's a reason why I have not gone through the effort of putting in trigger warnings, and it's not to catch people unawares, but because the description is there in the title. You know what this concept in this episode is going to be about, and you're in the community, you have a concept of what this is going to be in relation towards, The episode on Sense and Sounds, you knew that there was farting involved in that. So you're grown, if you're not prepared to listen to it, skip on by. This one ain't for you. But also, we have an obligation. If our whole thing, what we're touting about is we go there and we talk about everything in this subject matter, then we've got to talk about it, So how about we hand the reins over to you, other James? What?
Yeah.
Tell us about the changes in your hygiene, things you didn't realize. Walk us through that.
So I think that there's a few different parts of it, really. One is going to be showering or bathing. you need to become quite aware of the fact that, I mean, this varies obviously for different body shapes and types, but there are a lot more folds and crevices and things that are difficult to reach suddenly. You need to invest in stuff like a long-handled brush. In the shower, I have a long-handled wooden brush with a double. It's got brushes on both sides. I would also recommend stuff like. So I use a brand called Sanex that you can get in the UK for the shower gel and shower cream, because it's sensitive. It's designed for sensitive skin, and the thing is, even if your skin is not sensitive, I will guarantee you that the parts down there that you're struggling to get to are going to have sensitive skin. What happens if you don't do all that is you'll find that we're talking about mainly sort of down between your legs, if I'm totally honest. It's kind of where it gets worse. You'll find it'll get greasy, it'll get irritable, it gets dirty. But it then you start to get rashes, it starts to get uncomfortable, itchy, sore, you risk infection. It can get quite bad. So it's something you really have to keep on top of. I mean, shower every day regardless, but I find quite often in the summer months I have to shower twice a day just to keep the sweat and grease away from those areas, because if it's a bacteria likes to breed in dark dank areas, so like folds. So yeah, it's important to keep those clean. The other aspect of it is potentially a bit more gross, but it is something that I feel quite passionate about talking about it, because I know it's something that most people overlook when you get to larger sizes, but it is, let's be real here, it's toilet stuff. So you know, it's everyone goes, I see everyone on Grommr as well and other places going on quite a lot at the moment about how hot it is to have a big fat pad. And they're like, oh, I can't wait till my fat pad's really big. I can't wait for this. Speaking from experience, no. If I could turn back time, I would say I wish it wasn't there, or there was less of it, because the problem is everyone's like, oh, it's so hot. The idea of it, eating up your dick and burying your dick. It's like, yeah, I'm sure it's hot for all of 5 minutes until you got to pee. You try peeing when you don't have your stick anymore. You know, it makes peeing standing up nearly impossible. Peeing sitting down isn't particularly easy either.
I've come to experience, because, you know, to put it out there, I'm quite blessed with the size of my pad for the size that I am. And I found that the way that it grows, because you're sitting down, and just to talk, you know, the physics of it a little bit, because it sort of hangs and you've also got ample cheekage and everything, there isn't actually any other space for things. So because you've got things all kind of pushing, the only kind of place left is forward. And when you've got no control over your dick and you're just sat there having a whiz, you're probably going to find that your dick is now aimed at that right little crevice between the toilet seat and the toilet bowl. And now you've got piss running down the bowl and on the floor, because that has happened to me a couple of times. And I am just shocked. I am like, what the hell just happened? That never used to be a thing. And now I have to account for this. There are even, I've heard, on Amazon, you can get little features that you actually attach to either the top of the toilet bowl or the underside of a toilet seat, and that basically closes the gap.
Oh, wow. Okay. Fair enough.
So, keep an eye out. Game changer.
I can confirm that exactly that has happened to me multiple times. I find that when your fat pad gets to a certain size, though, what you end up doing is tucking your entire fat pad into the bowl, effectively.
Into the bowl.
Yeah, and which is obviously not the greatest place to put it anyway, but if it's completely burying your dick, it's effectively like you've got. It's almost like your dick is in a cave, and your pee is trickling out of it, and it's not coming out of a single. You know, the end of your dick is obviously a rod. It would normally come out and cause like a single stream waterfall. When it's coming out of a buried cave like that, it's not. It's dribbling all over your fat pad and just dribbling out wherever it can find a way out. which is fine if you can tuck your whole fat pad into the toilet and stuff, and you can do that. The problem is, any other circumstance when you're standing up, it's just going to just go anywhere. That there's not really much of a stream to speak of. The issue with that is toilet paper doesn't necessarily get that dry and clean. I mean, pee is acidic. We know this, and if you leave it sitting on pubic skin for any period of time, it's not going to do it any favors.
No.
So I find most of the time, this is why I'm so grateful I work from home now. If I pee at home, most of the time now, I would do it standing in the shower. And we have a detachable high pressure shower head that I can, or separate sort of high pressure things. We've got a rain shower head and then a separate handheld thing, which is like a high pressure type one. And I will just then spray my crotch while I'm peeing and after I finish peeing to keep it clean. And then I will towel dry myself off down there after every pee. And you think how many times you pee a day? It's it makes peeing when you go out quite tricky. So
I can imagine, even something simple I learned, because again, the size of my pad and the journey I'm currently on with that is I find that my undercarriage gets quite swampy.
Yep, that's definitely a word for it. And this is another thing, because I just assumed I wasn't going to have to deal with this until I hit 300.
So when swamp factor started hitting around 200, I was like, what the hell? But that's the reality. That's what I'm currently experiencing. So I have always got a collection of Andrex baby moistened towelettes, always by the toilet bowl. You best trust and believe. And I put them in my bag every goddamn time I have to leave the house, because you never know what you're going to come across out and about the world. But, even after I pee, even if I'm just like sort of tissue towel drying down there, I notice that the rub between my legs, between my undercarriage and the thigh where the fat is now folding over, and the pad and the sort of underbelly where the underbelly is folding over the pad, all of that is already a little bit sweaty, and all I've done is get up and go pee. So that always gets a nice little fresh wipe down just to take care of it. And, it's totally worth it. Maybe it's not something that I thought I'd have to deal with at this point in my gaining journey, but it's a reality. So, hey-ho. Just got to wet wipes and move on with it,
No, it sounds like a brilliant idea.
One thing that I'm really curious about is what kind of foot care do you do for yourself? Because I've noticed that sometimes, and this is not true for every gainer, obviously, but there are some people who do let themselves get to very large sizes and then never touch their feet again.
Yeah. I think it's kind of interesting, because I imagine it's something that's I don't want to stereotype, but I wonder if it's something that's quite prevalent in the gay gainer community, because obviously traditional stereotypically being gay, we tend to be a bit more concerned about how our looks and making sure everything is clean and looking good and looking great and all that kind of stuff. I mean, me personally, less so. I've just always been a bit meh. I'll just throw on a t-shirt and a pair of shorts and whatever. I just walk out the house. I don't care. But when it comes to my feet, then they're not in the greatest condition. I personally can't cut my toenails anymore. I thankfully have my husband who can do that for me. I rarely wear socks, but that's just personal preference, really. I just have slip-on shoes, and I don't go out often enough to need socks for any great length of time. There were periods where my toenails were getting not great, but at the moment they're doing okay. It seems to vary. I think the thing for me is not so much my feet as it is my lower legs, probably because they don't get scrubbed as much and cleaned as much, because it's just very, very hard to get down there. When you're standing in the shower, you can only stand there for so long anyway, before you just can't stand up anymore. But yeah,
did you ever consider getting a shower chair?
So we have one, actually. I don't use it anymore, because we bought it when I around the time I hit £500, I had an accident outside the front of the house, and I slipped over and smashed my knee. And so I couldn't stand, fat or not, I couldn't stand for very, very long at all. So we had to get a shower chair. I did find myself using it for a while, and I will say this now, just as a side thing: having a shower chair, honestly, it will make you feel incredibly obese. It's just in the best way. You'll be sitting there having a shower and be like, this is the lap of luxury. I'm sitting in my shower. It's just like, I don't know. It's just a weird thing, but it just made me feel really fucking fat. Yeah, I probably should bring it back into the bathroom, to be fair, but that probably would be a good idea to put my feet up actually and do it. But maybe I'm lazy. I don't know.
I get it. I made the transition to slip-on shoes. Again, I'm only just over 200, but that's something I've had to contend with, is my belly gets in the way. I can't stay crouched long enough to do socks, shoes, tie my laces. It is too
How do you
much.
think I feel putting on those leather boots that go up to my knee?
I
And
thought,
I have a pair that's just a lace up. I can't even zip them up.
yeah, Tim, you're a top. I thought you would have skull fucked Matt and gone, zip them up, faggot, and he would have gone, yes, baby. Like,
That would be lovely. You know, in all the years that I've done kinky BDSM stuff, I've never encountered a boy who was a service boy who was like, who I could just put my foot up and say, put my boots on and lace them. Never had that, not once.
we need to find you one of those ones who like do the dishes, do the chores. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then like when my coffee's not hot enough, I can throw it on their chest and scald them, and they go, "Thank you, Daddy," and walk away. Like that's what I want, but that's probably not what I'm ever going to get.
What I'm hearing from a lot of these instances that you're talking about, Other James, is that you've just got to deal with it. You're going to pee and your crotch will become swampy. You know, you're going to do your best to wipe and you might miss some spots. You're going to need to clean thoroughly and find ways that you can do that reliably. That will take care of the situation, and that's quite simply it. You need to be prepared to make adjustments.
You do, and the thing is, it will vary completely from person to person. These are just my experiences, but I know other people who are 5, 6, in some cases 700 pounds, and they all have their own different issues, their different ways of dealing with it. Some of them have been lucky and they haven't got these issues. Some do have some different issues to what I've had. It really varies. It just depends how your body's going to take it and what direction it's going to go in when you get there. Yeah, I will say as well, it's not, while we're on that topic, it's not just peeing as well. It's the other end. It also causes some pretty major issues. Like I will say this now publicly. I cannot wipe. I literally can't reach. So that is something that people do not see coming.
Do you have a bidet feature? Because I know a few super chubs who've told me about using bidet features.
We don't, but we do have we have because we have a walk-in shower and we have the handheld high pressure handheld unit, and basically that we use that. I use that, should I say we, but I use that.
Let it rip.
We have quite an open drain as well, so it's just yeah. If I'm totally blunt, that's what I have to use because I can't reach to wipe. I can only poop at home for that very reason. So,
I mean, look, that's not even the weirdest thing when you think about it, because you know, a typical gay feature is to douche, which is to put water in your ass, and you could try and aim it over the toilet, but if you've got a bathtub, that is by far the easier place to squirt into. And you will probably have chunks, and you've got to use your big toe to squish it down the drain. So, yeah, that's gross. But that's also something homos are already doing. So
I believe it's called waffle stomping, that one. That's I've heard that before, but
oh my God.
don't Google it.
No.
So I giggle not only because that was funny, but that also made me think of, so like my ex-husband, when he left my house, he left behind a shower shot. Now I'm a top, so I don't use it, but I do use it to clean the shower because it's so high pressure. So like I'll attach it to the shower head and then I'll use it to like clean off all the bleach and all the other stuff I've been scrubbing the towel with.
You know, I was just going to say our high pressure one is, I think actually because you're meant to have like a handheld like shower unit thing on the end of the hose, but the thing I have on the end of it is a bidet spray, so it is specifically designed to be that. So, but it is very, very good at also cleaning the shower, so you can use it for just other things and just.
So, are there any other points on hygiene you think we need to touch on?
I think it's probably worth mentioning as well, drying off. after you've had a shower. That's something that I have discovered is quite a good thing to do, really, just in general. But just what most people just think, oh, just towel dry or just drip dry, just stand there and just the water will go. You forget that there's water in places that the towel won't necessarily get. Yeah. So what I've been doing for the last 5-6 years is using a hairdryer on basically most of my body after a shower. And I do that on like armpits, all my folds, between my legs, everywhere like that, because it does make everything properly dry. Using talcum powder as well. I don't know what the American equivalent is to that, but some sort
baby
of
powder.
Powder. Baby powder, that kind of thing. That's usually good. I actually don't use deodorant at all, which is probably quite surprising. I haven't used deodorant in probably over 10 years, but that's just because I find it block. What antiperspirant does is it blocks up your pores. It doesn't stop you from sweating necessarily. It just blocks your pores so the sweat doesn't come out. So I don't use it because my pores are now unblocked as a result. So I don't really have any sweating issues in that regard, but still keep it dry with a hairdryer and with baby powder. No. Trying to think what else.
That makes perfect sense. Like
hygiene-wise,
shower stools, pressure attachments to showers, possibly a bidet feature. Are there any other maybe pieces of furniture or equipment that you would recommend to people being at certain size?
One thing that's quite handy is having a chair in the kitchen with wheels. So I do this, and I've seen another gamer do it as well. But I have an old office chair without arms in the kitchen, and it means that if I need to do stuff like load stuff into the freezer or empty or fill the dishwasher, I can just scoot around on this chair.
Oh, and you can get down low without having to squat.
Yes, it means I can do it from a sitting angle. So it's just a lot easier on my back and my legs to not have to stand and bend over the whole time. So obviously I can do that if it's just if I need to reach into the freezer to get something out, fine, that's fine. But if I need to do it prolonged, like if I'm trying to load the dishwasher, you don't want to stand there and bend over 30 times while you're filling it up. So it's quite handy for stuff like that. That's obviously totally circumstantial to your living situation, the size of your kitchen, etc. But if you've got the space, I just find it a really handy feature. So I'm trying to think what else furniture-wise. Be very aware when you're buying furniture. I mean, this is probably something that you'll realize on your own as you're getting there. But I mean, things like beds, I'd always say try and buy something that's overall you as you get bigger, you're going to end up doing the whole function over style thing. You're going to be picking stuff that is practical over what looks nice. And that's just something that you kind of have to give. It's our bed is like a steel box frame kind of bed that looks like it belongs in a prison, but it works. It's not pretty, but it's not meant to be. It's extremely tough, but that's fine. It does what it needs to do better than the pretty looking ones would. So, the same thing applies to most furniture and most things that you end up buying. It's just like, you have to just face facts. If you want to be huge, the stuff you're going to get isn't necessarily going to be the nicest stuff. It'll do the job very well, but it won't look great.
That's that on that. And kind of rounding things out, maybe one last question. People are listening, and maybe there are some listeners who, fetish aside, are actually gung-ho, want to be 500 pounds. What is the one piece of advice you're going to give?
I'd almost want to give two, to be honest. But
give two.
Okay. It would be to do your absolute best to maintain your fitness as long as you can. I put it this way: I was doing great up until I stopped working in retail, I stopped work. I think I left retail when I was, 340, 350. And I was fit as anything up until that point. And then started working desk jobs, and then desk jobs that required less walking. And it just, all went downhill from there. The other thing I would recommend is be very wary of what you're putting into your body food-wise. It might seem like a great idea when you're, under 300 pounds, even under 400 pounds, and you think, great, I'll have all these boost drinks, I'll drink all this cream, I'll have all this candy and sweets, and I'll have all these high sugar things, and and I'll drink all this soda because that's what the big boys do. And it's like, that is going to come back and bite you in the arse. That really is. It's like if I could go back and say to my past self, cut back on the sugar, that would be the big thing I'd say to myself, because then you'll save yourself having to take, how many am I taking now? 16 pills a day. So,
wow.
Yeah. So, and I'm not the worst case scenario. There are worse ways it could have gone. So, yeah, definitely take care of. You've only got one body. Take care of it. Do what it is you want to do, but definitely take care of it in the process.
There you go then. And you know what? That brings us really to the end of our episode. Other James, I want to say a big thank you. Well, especially big because you're fat. It's going to take a lot of thank yous to thank you sufficiently for having been on the show today. Where can people find you online?
I'm pretty much on Grommr as Icarus, or on Twitter as Fatty Icarus, and that's kind of it these days, really. So, but yeah, thank you very much for having me, though. It's been fantastic.
Thank you so much for being here. That's a wrap for now here on Thicc Radio. Please remember to like and subscribe, rate us 5 stars, and leave a good review. If you like this episode, the podcast, or just us in general, share it with your friends and encourage them to tune in. As always, you can find me on Grommr, Instagram, and TikTok at stannnum, and Twitter and YouTube at stannnum.bsky.
And you can find me on Grommr as Orpheus. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok at VickyMouse. And of course, you can find more of what we've talked about today on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Patreon at Thicc Radio. So until next time, bye, Fats.
Bye, Fats.
Let's talk about it.
Thicc Radio is a Patreon and Anchor app podcast produced by Stan and Vicky Mouse.
Mixed and mastered by stannnum.
Our artwork is provided by Lokitu.
Our theme song is provided by Spotify.